Hello, 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 everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome back. We're going to be reading M, N, and O in our appendix of the archetypes. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. Okay, and I thought okay, so I do have it saved. So we're starting off with the Martyr. The Martyr archetype is well known in two arenas: as a classical political or religious figure, and in the self-help world of contemporary psychology. Within the self-help field, the shadow martyr is viewed as a person who has learned to utilize a combination of service and suffering for others as the primary means of controlling and manipulating their environment. Ironically, in the social and political world, the martyr is often highly respected for having the courage to represent a cause, even if it requires dying for that cause for the sake of others. Suffering so that others might be redeemed, whether that redemption takes a spiritual or political form, is among the most sacred of human acts. While people recognize this archetype in others, particularly when they are directly influenced by the individual sporting this pattern, they often cannot see it in themselves. And some films that represent the martyr. We have Paul Scofield in A Man for All Seasons, Meryl Streep in Silkwood, Denzel Washington in Malcolm X, and Ben Kingsley in Gandhi. And drama, Saint Joan by G.B. Shaw. Fiction, A Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens. And religion or myth, many Christian saints, including the apostles. Mansur Hallaj, a 10th century Sufi mystic, martyred for his belief that God existed within him. Mediator, also ambassador, diplomat, or a go-between. Smoothing relations between potentially antagonistic groups or individuals requires patience and skill, an ability to read people and situations with great acuity. If a good advocate must empathize with those he is helping, a good mediator must be able to see and respect both sides of an argument or cause, thereby bringing warring parties together. One member of a family often assumes this role, so you do not have to be a career diplomat to qualify for this archetype. But you must have a lifelong commitment to resolving disputes and bringing people together. The shadow mediator manifests as an ulterior motive or hidden agenda, working two sides of an issue for personal gain. And films that relate to this aspect: Dominic Guard in The Go-Between, fiction, The Ambassadors by Henry James, and religion or myth. We have Thoth, the Egyptian god of wisdom and mediator among the gods, who always sought his counsel. We have Genetosca, an Iroquois woman so respected for her fairness and impartiality that all disputes were brought to her to settle. And we have Mitra, which is the Vedic name, or Mithra, the Persian, god of friendships and contracts and guardian of the cosmic order, regarded as a mediator between the gods and humankind. And I'm so sorry, my voice is kind of shot from all of the back-to-back videos of these archetypes that I did in maybe within an hour or two. So I thought maybe a little rest might help for a few hours, but not enough. I'm tired, it's late, but I wanted to get this information out to you. So I apologize if I'm not on top of my game and my voice is a little bit wonky. Now we have the mentor, which is also known as the master, counselor, tutor, and it says, see also teacher. A mentor is a teacher in whom you can place your implicit trust. The word comes from the character in the Odyssey, to whom Odysseus, on setting out for Troy, had entrusted the care of his house and the education of his son, Telemachus. Today, the role of mentor is crucial in a surprising range of life situations, from many forms of art and artisanship to business and spiritual practice. Mentors do more than just teach. They pass on wisdom and refine their students' character. In its shadow aspect, however, the mentor can take on an overbearing attitude that is more about imposing control than imparting wisdom. A characteristic of the shadow mentor is an inability to allow the student to move on into the role of master, maintaining control over the student's development of mind, body, and skills. The distinction between this archetype and the teacher is mainly one of degree. If you have shown a lifelong pattern of taking individual students under your wing and guiding many aspects of their life, this may be an appropriate choice. Okay, and now we have films that represent the mentor. We have Alec Guinness to Mark Hamill in Star Wars, Takashi Shimura to Toshiro Mifune in The Seven Samurai, Yul Brynner to Host Buchholz in The Magnificent Seven, Betty Davis, to Anne Baxter in All About Eve, Paul Newman to Tom Cruise in The Color of Money, and films for the teacher aspect, Betty Davis in The Corn is Green, Sidney Poitier in To Sir with Love, Michael Caine in Educating Rita, and Glenn Ford in Blackboard Jungle. And for television, James Gandolfini to Robert Imperioli in The Sopranos. Fiction, we have Fagin to Oliver in Oliver Twist by Charles Dickens, and this would be the shadow aspect. Drama, The Miracle Worker by William Gibson. For fiction, The Prince of Ms. Jean Brodie by Muriel Spark, shadow aspect, and Hard Times by Charles Dickens, shadow aspect. Religion and myth, Krishna. In Indian scripture, the spiritual mentor of Arjuna. Then we have Chiron. In Greek myth, a wise cantor who had extensive knowledge of the healing arts and tutored Asclepius, Theseus, and Achilles. Then we have Ninsun. In Sumerian legend, the mother of Gilgamesh, who serves as his counselor. Now we have Messiah, or Redeemer, Savior. This archetype is associated with the embodiment of divine power and being sent on a mission by heaven to save humanity. For all of its Judeo-Christian significance, the archetype of the Messiah has also become associated with psychological behavior. The Messiah complex, for example, applies to a person who is convinced of their divine mission and, in almost all cases, becomes obsessed with their mission to the point of psychosis, reaching an extreme in which a person begins to hear voices directing them to take lethal action. Criminals such as Jim Jones and Charles Manson are evidence of the shadow Messiah in its extreme. Its subtle expression, however, is far more common and more difficult to identify as a personal pattern. People can become obsessed about their spiritual purpose, convinced that God needs them to do something. Films. Reese Witherspoon and Tobey Maguire in Pleasantville, Jeremy Irons and Robert De Niro in The Mission, Marcello Mastroianni in The Organizer, and Religions and Myth. We have Mashiach, or the Anointed One in Hebrew, the descendant of King David who is expected to restore the Jewish kingdom. Jesus Christ, the Anointed One in Greek, believed by Christians to be the promised Redeemer. Adam Kadmon, the primordial man in the Jewish Kabbalah, described as the most perfect manifestation of God that humanity could contemplate, later identified with the Messiah. Al-Mahdi, the Guided One in Arabic, a awaited descendant of Muhammad, who will herald the end of history and restore Islamic purity. Then we have Maitreya, the Loving One in Sanskrit, the fifth and final earthly Buddha, who will help all those who have not yet realized enlightenment, and Maitreya, from what I understand, is an ascended master. Kalki. In Hindu belief, a future reincarnation of Vishnu, who will arrive on a white horse to liberate the world from strife. Tang, a Chinese messiah who saved mankind from a great drought by sacrificing his body in a mulberry bush, immediately inducing rainfall. Some of these stories are just so outrageous. Not to say that they're unbelievable, but just outrageous. Now we have the Midas / miser. These two archetypes are so close that for practical purposes, you can consider them together. Midas turned everything he touched into gold, including, tragically, his beloved daughter. The archetype is associated with entrepreneurial or creative ability. That Midas was a king symbolically implies that the Midas figure has the power to generate wealth for an entire kingdom, yet is interested only in his personal aggrandizement. Greed is his downfall. For that reason, lessons of generosity are a large part of the characteristics of this archetype. The shadow Midas or miser creates wealth by hoarding money and emotions at the expense of others and refusing to share them. Although the desire to earn a living or become wealthy is not negative, this archetype also represents a need to control the forces around you for fear of losing your wealth. The challenges inherent in the miser and Midas can go so far as to make a person confront what he is willing to do to create a mountain of wealth. Films that relate to this: Bette Davis in The Little Foxes, Michael Douglas in Wall Street, James Dean in Giant, Lionel Barrymore in It's a Wonderful Life, fiction, Scrooge in A Christmas Carol, and Uriah Heep in David Copperfield by Charles Dickens. Then we have Silas Marner by George Eliot. And when I say fiction, we're talking about books, not film, books, in all categories when I say fiction. Drama, The Miser by Molière. And religion, myth, Midas, a king of Phrygia in Asia Minor, who was given the dubious gift of the golden touch by the god Dionysus. Cuckooth in Albanian lore, the spirit of a deceased miser who cannot find rest. Now we have monk or nun, also known as celibate, or another word for it, celibate. I have something I need to move. Sorry, it's my speaker. It's in the way. I need my elbow room. Hopefully that doesn't fall on the ground. Okay. The positive aspects of this archetype are fairly obvious: spiritual intensity, devotion, dedication, persistence, and perhaps wisdom. On the shadow side, the role of a religious recluse could be seen as being removed from the real world. Overly pious, even privileged in the sense of not having to be concerned about earning a living or raising a family. Yet, historically, monks have been extremely industrious and involved in real-world enterprises, whether draining swamps and planting vineyards in medieval Europe, working the rice fields in Asia, building monasteries, teaching, or copying and preserving texts. Today, the monk archetype may show up in the ability to be single-minded, assiduous, devoted to a spiritual path, or to any great achievement that requires intense focus. In this sense, novelists and entrepreneurs can carry the monk as readily as a spiritual adept. Wow. The celibate reserves his or her energy for work and or spiritual practice. Yet one can be a monk, even a religious one, without being celibate, as is the case with some Tibetan lamas, yogis, and Islamic scholars. Then there were Abelard and Heloise, the 12th century monk and nun who forsook their vows of celibacy out of passion for each other. Both were superior in their fields. Abelard as lecturer, debater, and philosopher. Heloise as a radical prioress and founder of convents. And although their passion caused them great suffering, it does not seem to have hurt their spiritual work. Now, films. We have Claude Ledoux in Diary of a Country Priest, Audrey Hepburn in The Nun Story, Yi Pain Yong in Why Has Bodhidharma Left for the East, Deborah Kerr in Heaven Knows Mr. Allison, and Loretta Young in Come to the Stable. Then we have Lilia Scala in Lilies of the Field. Television, Derek Jacobi in Brother Cadfael. Fiction, The Name of the Rose by Umberto Eco. And religion, myth, Friar Tuck, the mythical sword-fighting monk of Robin Hood's Merry Men. Nennius, a Welsh monk commonly believed to have compiled the Historia Brittonum, which was used by Geoffrey of Monmouth and others to reconstruct the history of King Arthur. Then we have Bernadette Soubirous, a 19th century French girl who at the age of 14 claimed visions of Virgin Mary. And now we have Mother. M has the most, but there are no O's. So yeah, we'll get through this in a pretty decent amount of time. Mother, also known as Matriarch, Mother Nature, Parent. The mother is the life giver, the source of nurturing and nourishment, unconditional fountain of love, patience, devotion, caring, and unselfish acts. This archetype is the keeper and protector of life, from children to the family to, in the greater Mother Nature archetype, the earth and all life. Mother Nature, also known as Gaia, is the goddess of life, the caretaker of the living environment of this planet. She is recognized as powerful, and when storms leave death and destruction in their wake, she may be referred to as wrathful. The power of compassion and the endless capacity to forgive her children and put them before herself are essential to the good mother. The devouring, abusive, abandoning, and working mother each represent different aspects of this primal archetype within the entire human community. So let me say that again. The devouring, abusive, abandoning, and working mother. These are aspects of the mother archetype. And apparently this is inherent within each and every one of us. You don't have to be an actual mother to carry the mother archetypal pattern. Although mothers have always worked, the contemporary archetype of the career or working mother reflects the crises experienced by many women who seek also to be devoted mothers. Measured against the impossible mythic ideal of the perfect mother, the career mom is sometimes assumed unfairly to be a mother who puts her own needs before those of her children. This is an archetypal crisis for many women. The devouring mother consumes her children psychologically and emotionally, and often instills in them feelings of guilt at leaving her or becoming independent. The abusive and abandoning mothers violate natural law by harming their own young. Connections to the mother archetype are not to be measured only by whether a woman is a biological mother. If you are intimately connected to nurturing and protecting the environment, including gardening or farming or supporting any life form, you should strongly consider whether your bond to Mother Nature is part of a lifelong devotion that defines you. You may also recognize a strong bond to the mother archetype in the form of one or all of her shadows. While it is difficult to admit, some women may have to face the fact that their children see them through the shadow aspects of the mother, including the abusive or abandoning mother. Just as women can have a real connection to the father archetype when they take on the paternal role in the household, so men may relate to being Mr. Mom, yet another contemporary sculpting of the mother archetype. The qualities that are associated with this archetype can be expressed in other than biological ways, such as giving birth to books or ideas or by nurturing others. Some films that represent this archetype: Irene Dunne in I Remember Mama, Myrna Loy in Cheaper by the Dozen and Bells on Their Toes, Sophia Loren in Two Women, Sally Field in Places in the Heart, Anne Bancroft in The Pumpkin Eater, Rosalind Russell in Gypsy, and that's the devouring mother in that example, Katharine Hepburn in Suddenly Last Summer, this is the shadow aspect of the mother, Faye Dunaway in Mommy Dearest, that is a good one, shadow definitely, Angela Lansbury in The Manchurian Candidate, shadow, Gladys Cooper in Now Voyager, shadow, Alberta Watson in Spanking the Monkey, incestuous. I don't think that's a type, at least she didn't mention that, but it mentions it's incestuous and maybe it's a sensitive subject, so she noted that. Now, drama. Mother Courage by Bertolt Brecht, Medea by Euripides, The Glass Menagerie by Tennessee Williams, and Religion Myth, As with gods, goddesses, and mystics, the mother appears in all religious traditions and myths, usually as the divine mother. These are just a few examples. Lakshmi, Durga, and Kali in Hinduism, Mary or Miriam in Christianity or Islam, Sarai and Naomi in Judaism, Sibyl, the fertility goddess of ancient Anatolia, also known as the Great Mother, Demeter, a Greek myth, Isis, Egyptian myth, Tellus, a Roman Mother Earth goddess, Quetzalcoatl, an Aztec Mother Earth goddess, also patron of birth and of women who die in childbirth. Fairy tales, Mother Goose, and Mother Hubbard. Now the last M, mystic, or renunciate, anchorite, hermit. Perhaps no archetype is more coveted by my students or more misunderstood than the mystic. Many want to believe that they have mystical inclinations, yet they underestimate how arduous the genuine mystical path is. When they find out, they're usually happy to let someone else have this role. The lives of the world's great mystics have often included extraordinary states of consciousness, such as prolonged ecstatic trances and preternatural abilities of precognition or bilocation. Yet they also contained sometimes great physical as well as spiritual suffering, hard work, and mundane activities that made up much of their days. If you truly want to name this archetype as part of your sacred consortium, ask yourself if you are ready to pay the price in blood, sweat, and tears. If mystical consciousness is something you engage in once a day during meditation or on a weekend retreat or a yoga workshop, you may be a spiritual seeker, but not a mystic. The single-minded dedication of the mystic carries over to the renunciate, the archetype renunciate, which she mentioned in here, grouped up with the mystic, who relinquishes material desires and ambitions to pursue spiritual practice. The anchorite, who withdraws from the world almost entirely to follow a similar path, and the hermit, who withdraws from others to pursue a solitary life, although not always for spiritual purposes. The shadow mystic manifests as an egocentric concern for one's own spiritual progress to the exclusion of others, and an attendant sense of self-importance at having achieved higher states of consciousness. It may also emerge in behavior that takes advantage of admirers or students in base economic, emotional, or sexual ways. Since genuine enlightenment manifests as the desire to be of service of others, this is a pretty good indication that you haven't arrived yet. And some films that represent this one: Catherine Moshe in Tutor-see, Richard Dreyfuss in Close Encounters of the Third Kind, Emily Watson in Breaking the Waves, drama Agnes of God by John Peelmeyer, fiction Lying Awake by Mark Salzman, and religion myth. All the great traditions have produced mystics, of which the following are a small representative sample: Teresa of Avila, Meister Eckhart or Eckhart Tolle, I think, or I'm just going to say Meister Eckhart because I don't know if that's correct, William Law, Hildegard of Bingen, Christianity, Baal Shem Tov, Moses ben Naaman, and Abraham Abulafia, Judaism. Rabbi Ibn al-Arabi and Mansur al-Hallaj, Islam, Sri Ramakrishna, Anandamaya Ma, and Ramana Maharshi in Hinduism, Bhati Dharma, Milarepa Bankei and Pema Chodron in Buddhism, Chuang Tzu and Wang Pi in Taoism, Padrino Sebastio and Credo Mutwa in shamanism. And I know I butchered those. I apologize. Now for the letter N. And for N, we have one. And that is networker, which also includes gossip. We already read gossip, but it also includes messenger, herald, courier, journalist, communicator. Although networking seems like a very modern skill tied to career advancements in the media age, it is actually quite ancient. Networkers expand their sphere of influence by forging alliances and making connections among vastly different groups of people, and can be traced back to the intrigues of the Middle Ages, Greece, Rome, and ancient China. Networking would also have been an integral part of any military alliance, as well as all social and clan confederations in prehistory. In its positive aspect, this archetype helps us develop social flexibility and empathy that enables one to find commonality with others who might not at first seem to be potential friends, allies, or confederates. Like the related archetypes of messenger and communicator, the networker has the skills to bring information, or power, and inspiration to disparate groups of people. The shadow networker merely uses others for personal gain. And here we have films. Peter Finch in Network, John Bowles in A Message to Garcia, Stuart Peterson in Pony Express Rider, and Jeff Goldblum in Between the Lines. Religion and myth. Almost every culture on Earth has or had a messenger of the gods who networks between the divine and human realms, including the angel Raphael in Judaism, Gabriel in Christianity, Jibril in Islam, Madharazvan in Vedic India, Eagle and Coyote, American Indian, Iris and Hermes in Greece, Mercury in Rome, Sreyosa in Zoroastrianism, Nusku in Assyria, Nira in Sumeria, Srosh in Persia, Painal in Aztec, Savali in Samoa, Gao Meng in China, Narada in Java, and Na and Hermod in Norse. Okay, so we'll stop right there. And in the next video, we will read, we have nothing in O, so we'll read P. We don't have anything in Q. Oh, we do. We have one. P, Q, and R. Yeah, so we are almost done with the appendix. Yay. I just want to get this, guys. I want to get this out to you guys so that we can move on. And the more that I can get these things out, the more you can listen to them and figure out for yourself what you are, who you are, what are you here for. So, all right, we'll stop right there and we will pick up where we left off in the next video. I will see you all very soon. Hopefully my voice will be better. I may take a 1 or 2 day break, but that's okay. I have a few videos waiting and lined up to put out to you with the appendix. So I love you all and I will see you soon. Thank you for joining me. Take care until next time. Bye-bye.